I don't post about political topics, current events, or mass media drama often, and I'll keep to that standard. But this most recent scandal is relevant to something I cover in my deeper work with clients and in my books. So, if you've been following the Epstein scandal, you've probably been thinking or hearing others say things like, how do we know what's true? Who knew this was happening? How long has this been going on? If this is real, what else are powerful people lying about? And then the next layer of questions creep in. Can we trust organizations? Could we ever, or has it all been a lie? Is the government really some vast conspiracy? And for some people who think themselves more awake or more spiritual, the response is, this confirms what I already knew. This proves what I've been saying. Now everyone will finally see. This will lead to another spiritual awakening. It's easy for some people to use this to declare themselves more awake than others, but both viewpoints can be dangerous and lull you deeper into sleep. Because even if you see yourself as more awake than most people who are asleep, both perspectives are examples of your mind trying to grasp certainty and validation as fast as possible. Cloaking your response in spiritual language does not change this, and could put you in a worse place than the people you consider brainwashed or asleep. That's the trap. The moment your nervous system gets hijacked, you stop observing reality, and you start using reality to feed a storyline. That last question is still the one that matters. Anyone who has had even their first spiritual awakening knows that government itself is a corrupt and dangerous idea that has never worked, will never work, and was responsible for more deaths in the 20th century than the top 2 to 9 causes of death combined. That's not opinion, that's math. Even the word government comes from 2 Latin words that mean to control or direct the mind. That is not an accident or semantic coincidence, and the news is a part of the power structure, the propaganda arm of what the book of Revelation calls the great and terrible beast. This scandal is just another reminder, and for those who discern it, awakening will follow. But only if they do not fall for the counterfeit of spiritual awakening, which is the impulse to interpret reality instead of discerning it. This isn't just news. For a lot of people it lands like betrayal, and betrayal doesn't just shock you in the present, it changes how you relate to the past. Here's what it really means to wake up. To realize reality wasn't what you thought it was, and to adjust by discerning, not interpreting. That distinction is everything right now. Interpreting is when your nervous system wants relief, so your mind rushes to a conclusion. You connect dots too fast. You treat suspicion like certainty. You grab a narrative that feels stabilizing. You allow these interpretations to calcify into truths. And that's how the machine, of which Epstein was just another part, traps you and rocks you into deeper sleep, not by forcing one lie, but by training you to move fast and feel hot, by rewarding outrage, by making it feel like you have to pick a side and lock in a story today. The Matrix doesn't need you to be wrong, it just needs you to be reactive. Reactive people are programmable people. Discerning is when you slow down and get accurate. What's confirmed versus what's assumed. What's evidence versus what's emotion. What you know versus what you want to be true. This is also where possession shows up in a way most people don't recognize. Demonic possession isn't an archaic religious idea. It's much more common, widespread, and relevant to modern times than most of us realize. Possession is when an idea starts thinking for you, when a narrative takes the driver's seat, when you can feel yourself getting pulled into certainty, contempt, and repetition. That's ideological possession. You don't have a perspective, the perspective has you, and if you want the old school language for what's happening, it's devils and sins, not cartoon demons with pitchforks. Devils are parasitic thought forms that feed on repression, fear, and desire. They look for the weakest, most unintegrated parts of you and use them like strongholds. That's why the 7 deadly sins still map perfectly to modern life. Greed, lust, and sloth stronghold you at the survival level. Wrath, Gluttony and envy stronghold you at the emotional level. Pride strongholds you at the spiritual level. And this kind of scandal is a buffet for all of them. Lust and greed get activated. Wrath and envy get weaponized. Pride convinces you that your take is the only sane take. If you don't discern, you don't just get informed, you get recruited. That's why these moments spread so fast. There's a real phenomenon at work here called emotional contagion. It means emotions transfer from person to person, especially in crowds and online feeds. When fear and outrage are repeated enough times, you start feeling them as if they're your own original signal. And once your body is charged, interpretation feels like truth because it feels like relief. Now, if you want the deeper map for what's happening, Chapter 3 of my book, Awaken Your Shadow, reveals things like this as another reminder of devils and sins at work in the modern world. Not cartoon demons or the portrayal of possession you see in the movies. Devils, in this sense, are parasitic patterns and thought forms that feed on unintegrated shadow. They don't need you to be evil. They just need you to be unexamined. They look for strongholds in you, and the strongholds have names. At the physical level, the survival level, the strongholds are greed, lust, and sloth. That's the part of you that says, get yours, numb out, run from discomfort. At the emotional level, the belonging and validation level, the strongholds are wrath, gluttony, and envy. That's the part of you that says, burn them, binge the outrage, compare and resent. At the spiritual level, the meaning and authority level, the stronghold is pride. That's the part of you that says, I see it, I'm above it, I'm the righteous one. And this is why scandals like Epstein's don't just reveal information, they activate the three levels. They light up the survival body, the emotional body, and the spiritual ego. My book, Awaken Your Shadow, lays out the progression of our three spiritual awakenings, and how each one is rarer than the previous. Your first awakening teaches you to see through illusions. It sharpens your ability to see in the dark, but there is also a risk that your new ability to speak in spiritual language will become another cage for your consciousness. In my experience and research over the past 33 years, about 1 in 1,000 people experience this first awakening. Most of them mistake this ledge on the spiritual mountain as the summit. The second awakening teaches you to feel without leaking. It sharpens your ability to hold emotional charge without making it everyone else's problem. But there is also a risk that your new sensitivity becomes a weapon, and your truth becomes emotional contagion. Virtue signaling and spiritual bypassing become substitutions for growth. In my experience and research over the past 33 years, about 1 in 1,000,000 people experience this awakening and are even more likely to mistake the campsite on the ledge of the mountain for the peak. The third awakening is an experience and transformation that's nearly impossible to describe in words, and about 1 in 100 million ever reach this summit. It's so rare and so disorienting and transformational. It nearly killed me during the 444 days I was writing Awaken Your Shadow. This awakening doesn't make you more healed, intelligent, or even enlightened or at peace. It makes you ungovernable, not in a rebellious way, but in a way that installs lasting sovereignty and spiritual sobriety. It turned my hair from brown to gray. It took me apart piece by piece at a molecular level and made it impossible to return to the shores of ordinary life. I rarely speak of it in public or even private conversations, not to conceal the revelation, but to preserve its potency. I share it now because it's events like this that either wake you up, trap you at your campsite on the mountainside, or send you tumbling back down the mountain. Betrayal trauma is the most common trigger for these awakenings. It's also the very thing which causes even spiritually awakened people to mistake the raft for the final shore. Betrayal trauma is the only kind of trauma that forces you to change your memory of the past. Other trauma hurts and leaves scars. Betrayal trauma fractures your timeline because the injury isn't just something bad happened. The injury is, I trusted, and what I trusted was not what it claimed to be. So your mind goes back and rewrites what you thought you lived. That wasn't protection. That wasn't normal. That wasn't a mistake. That wasn't my intuition being wrong. That's the fracture. And how you respond to that fracture will decide what happens next. Some people will wake up, they'll get slower, clearer, more honest. They'll separate facts from stories. They'll refuse to let outrage replace discernment. Other people will fall deeper asleep. They'll trade accuracy for certainty. They'll outsource their mind to tribes and influencers, and they'll interpret everything until they can't see straight. So the real question isn't what's your take. The real question is, are you discerning or interpreting? Because this moment will either wake you up to reality, or it will push you deeper, asleep inside a story that feels good, feels powerful, or feels satisfying, but that will only lull you into deeper sleep. If you're ready to awaken and transform the part of yourself you've been hiding, the part that's secretly sabotaging your success and happiness, and the part of you that once healed and transformed has the strength and courage to fulfill your deepest potential and your greatest dreams, click the link below this video to listen to a free audiobook of Awaken Your Shadow. If you enjoyed this videos, please give it a like, share it with a friend, and subscribe to this channel for more videos like it.